I officially welcome you all to the International Orientation Fall 2026, Part 2, On and Off-Campus Housing Info Session. So this session will only cover the on-campus and off-campus housing information and tips. And for a more comprehensive understanding of your pre and post-arrival journey, we encourage you to attend our other sessions as well. So those of you who are watching the recording, please note that the auto caption functionality may not be 100% accurate. And starting with the land acknowledgement, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the Simon Fraser University is located on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Coquitlam, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Tuasin nations. What I've just shared is a land acknowledgement. Some of you may be familiar with the land acknowledgements, while it may be something new for others. We acknowledge the land to honor Indigenous people who have lived and worked on this land historically and presently. And moving on next, here's the agenda and the list of topics we'll be covering, starting with what's the difference between on-campus and off-campus housing, applying to on-campus SFU residents and moving in, and then we'll move on to off-campus housing, the advising and SFU partner options that you have, some tips and important considerations, and finally, family housing before we close the recording and then move on to the Q&A session and the closing. Okay, and with that, I'll hand off the introductions to our guest speaker here.
All right, good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, depending on where in the world you may be today. My name is Danielle, and I'm the off-campus living advisor. I'll talk a little bit more about the role in some later slides. We will also have Kim joining us for the Q&A, who is the Associate Director of Residence Life, and then Neela, who I believe has introduced yourself. And have you? You can let them know what your role is.
Yeah. So hi again, I am Neela. I'm the coordinator for International Student Experience at International Services for Students at SFU. It is great to have everyone join us today. So yeah.
Looking forward to your questions towards the end, but just a little bit of info about kind of the scope of this presentation. I will be talking about both on and off-campus housing. And given the poll results, I think, have most people joined? Should we share? Or we can leave it open.
Can leave it open for that.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can see the results, but I can. So it looks like in the room with us today, we have a pretty even spread of, well, definitely more graduate students than undergraduate, but good amounts of both types of students. And then, yeah, a pretty wide spread of people's different housing plans for the fall. So some of you have been admitted to residence, some of you are waitlisted, others are looking for off-campus housing, and some of you have secured off-campus housing. So we're going to try to give you a little bit of everything. Sorry, a little bit of everything, and hopefully we can get some of your questions answered as well. All right. So we're going to start with the difference between on and off-campus housing. I know it's sometimes it can be confusing because there are some residences with great proximity to campus, or they may feel as though they're on the campus themselves, but they're not actually run by SFU. So I do want to talk a little bit about our options as well as our off-campus housing partners. So if you have applied through SFU, you would be living on campus. So if you've gone through the SFU portal, this is all housing that you apply for through SFU residence and housing. This is considered on-campus housing. So this includes undergraduate as well as graduate and family housing. If you haven't applied to residence yet, or maybe you're thinking of doing so in the future, there's many different options for what you can do depending on your campus as well. So that QR code will take you through to all the different housing options on campus. We also have off-campus housing partners who we may recommend to provide housing, whether that be in Burnaby, in Surrey, or in Vancouver. And so these are not operated by SFU residents in housing. However, we have visited these places and we've checked them out. We know that they offer amenities that are appropriate for students, and we also will send you directly to our contacts over there to apply for this housing. So any of these, so this includes GEC. I'll talk a little bit more about the partners later, but GEC, Coto Living, and other privately owned accommodation, you would then apply directly to these housing providers for your housing option over there. So this off-campus housing would also include other individually listed units on listing services, which I'll also talk a little bit more about in a minute.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Danielle. So we will move on to on-campus housing applying to SFU residents and moving in. So my first question is, what are the deadlines to apply for on-campus residents?
That's a great question. So depending on the term, you'll see the dates and deadlines listed here. If you have applied for housing for the fall, or you're considering applying for a future term, we would very strongly recommend that you apply on the day that applications open. So if you've found yourself on a wait list or you haven't applied yet, of course, like we do work through that wait list. But if you haven't applied, there is a wait list to get into housing for the fall. But just keep in mind that the day that those applications open, because you're going to want to be ready on the portal, ready to apply to give you the most flexibility and options for being admitted to residence for a future term. I just want to talk a little bit now about if you are currently waitlisted. So today, just given how many people are in the session, we won't be able to address individual concerns with regards to your waitlist status in the Q&A portion today. But you can reach out to housing@sfu.ca if you are having concerns with your individual situation. And we also would, if you don't get into residence this time, maybe consider a future term as well. I will provide a good amount of information about off-campus housing if you are planning to start there and then possibly applying to residence in the future. So these dates and deadlines are all available on the apply page, but make sure if you see a term here, you're like, I want to live there in the spring or in the summer, that you are actually applying on the day that the applications open. That is strongly encouraged. Oops, I'll just go back for a minute. So I also want to mention there is a little bit of a difference with the dates between undergrad. You'll see two categories here. So undergraduate and graduate application dates, and then graduate and family housing. So if you are a graduate student, there are a couple of different options. You can live in some of the buildings here on this side of campus, or there's also graduate and family housing, which is a different setup. And I'll talk a little bit more about those options towards the end of the presentation.
Thank you for that intro. And my second question is, what are the benefits of living on campus residence?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And if you are going to come live with us or thinking about it, these are just some great things to know. And a number of studies have been done showing the higher academic success that comes as a result of living on campus, higher GPAs, retention, graduation outcomes. You also do have private rooms there isn't any shared rooms in our residence. Um, you may, in some setups, have a roommate who does not stay in your room. You get your own separate bedroom and you share some common areas. It's also very convenient. So you can, if you're coming to the Burnaby campus or you're living in Charles Chang and attending Vancouver campus, you can walk to your classes. You can just pop around the corner to your classes. Also on Burnaby campus, the dining commons and access to the gym is really available to you. The meal plan as well for Burnaby students. You don't have to worry about cooking. You can come eat in the dining commons, and they have a great variety. They are always having special events. So you're able to do that and not worry about sustaining yourself with food. You can pop into the dining hall and get that whenever you want. There are also about 2,300 residents from about 90 countries. So it's a very vibrant community. There's great support from our residence life team, so live-in staff, student staff, and professional staff, as well as like amazing programming to support all different aspects of yourself, not just as a student, but as a person. And also, again, easy access to campus resources. So if you're needing to make appointments on campus, you're able to, be able to walk over, especially from Burnaby campus, and get access to all those different resources that are available to you at the university. Okay.
Thank you. And third question. So I have been admitted to SFU residence. How do I prepare for move-in day?
Okay. So I'm seeing in the poll that, yeah, a number of you have been admitted to residence. So I will talk a little bit about move-in day and what that might look like. Oops. Okay, so if you have been admitted to residence and you are going to be moving in, our fall move-in day, that's our fall move-in day, September 5th. And what's really important here is checking your SFU email. So you'll see some information being sent to your SFU email, and that includes any information about moving in. So that's like booking your move-in appointment, where you need to go, like what you need to bring, all of that information that will come out to your SFU email. And I know sometimes there's a few emails that people use. So definitely keep an eye out for that about, about 4 weeks prior to your move-in day. And it does contain like pretty essential information about how to make your move-in efficient. We also recommend that students get tenant insurance. So it's a good idea to prepare for any emergencies that might happen in the building. We're not saying these things will happen, but that's the good thing about insurance is really hopefully that day will never come. But we do recommend that students get that. And there's more information and details that will come out in these newsletters about how to secure your tenant insurance. We do also have lists of what to bring, what not to bring. Some of these depend on which building you're living in. So if you are living somewhere that has a kitchen and you're not on the meal plan, you'll have probably some other items to bring. And that's a good thing to keep in mind. So definitely keep an eye on your email for those newsletters that will start coming out. I think I have another slide about this. Yes. I do also want to, again, you'll receive this information, but just to give you an idea of how you might be getting to residents from the airport. So a couple of different options, public transportation to both Burnaby and Vancouver. It may be a little tricky if you have a lot of items. If you're coming with big suitcases and they're rolling ones, probably okay. boxes will be a little more tricky. But there is, if you haven't been to Vancouver before, there is a SkyTrain line directly from the airport. So you can take this SkyTrain, the Canada line, right from the airport. And depending on which campus you are attending and which residence you're moving into, you will be able to get there via public transit. So not to go into too much detail, but it's a bus, it's a SkyTrain and then a bus to Burnaby. Probably take about an hour and 20 minutes. The bus ride, the bus stop is very close though. So Courtyard residence, where you check in when you move in, is about a 5-minute walk from the transportation center. If you are attending Vancouver campus and you maybe are moving into Charles Chang, you can also take public transportation. So it's the same line, the Canada line, directly from YVR, and you don't have to switch onto a bus. That will take you directly downtown in about 20, maybe 25 minutes to Waterfront Station. And then it's probably about a 10-minute walk from Waterfront, maybe 7, depending on how many bags you have, but also very easy to access. I didn't mention it here because they're not our residences, but if you're moving to Surrey, somewhere near our Surrey campus, that is also on the SkyTrain. So you would take a SkyTrain downtown, switch lines, and take another SkyTrain. All of these campuses very accessible by public transportation and to where you check in. There is also parking. If you are getting a ride, getting picked up, you'll be able to park and check in and then start moving your things over. Also, rideshare taxis available from the airport. This is all available as well on the move-in page, which is at this QR code here. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Danielle. Next, we're moving on to resources and options for off-campus housing. So who can I reach out to about off-campus living, Danielle?
Good question. So that would be me. You'll see my email down there on the bottom left of the screen. So you can email ocliving@sfu.ca. Just a little bit of information about what I can support with, what the off-campus living advisor can support with. So we can provide tips, strategies, and resources to find safe and affordable housing. You can reach out about information about your tenants' rights and responsibilities. So if you're running into any issues with your landlord, with the upkeep of your unit, anything like that, we can provide some resources to help address those issues. We also can connect you to our off-campus housing partners. So if you're currently looking for off-campus housing and you aren't sure where to start, we can give you more information about those different off-campus housing partners. And again, guidance for students experiencing challenges with any off-campus housing situations. So feel free to send me an email. I do also, at the Global Student Center, usually about once a term, will come and set up a table or have a little session. So look out for that, for opportunities to connect in person. In terms of, as much as I would love to help you with everything under the sun, there are a few things that we cannot provide, and I myself as the off-campus living advisor can't provide. So that number one would be legal advice. I am unfortunately not a lawyer, but we can connect you if you do require legal resources. There's a couple of avenues that you can explore to get that help if you need it. We also can't provide individual housing services or searches. So if you are looking for a place, I will do, of course, everything we can to support you in that process. I am not able to attend viewings or make phone calls or sign as your guarantor or anything like that. But if you do need help with those things, please reach out.
You and what are my options for off-campus housing?
Good question, Mila. So I don't think we asked students which campus they will be attending, but I will be talking about all of them. So at Burnaby campus, of course, you have the option to stay in SFU residence. But if you are looking to off-campus housing, there's a couple different ones we recommend that are on our partners page, which I'll show you shortly. So the two in Burnaby would be GEC Living and Koto, which is here on Burnaby Mountain. GEC has a number of different locations, but they do have an option in Burnaby Heights, which is very convenient, and quite a few SFU students already live there. So I will go into a little bit more detail about these shortly. If you are coming to Surrey, there is a building called Bosa Parkway, which is unfurnished apartments, but they do have studio 1 and 2 bedrooms, and it's just about a 7-ish minute walk from your Surrey campus. So it's just around the corner. It's the same SkyTrain stop. Very convenient for that. They have a lot of nice amenities as well, like kind of study co-working areas and spaces that you can use that will be helpful during your time as a student. In Vancouver, we do have Alma Gastown. So if you're looking to be downtown, be very close to the campus buildings, that's one option. GEC also has a number of different locations in Vancouver that are able to be accessed by public transit to the Vancouver campuses. And also Surrey. So if you wanted to live in a GEC location, they're very well connected on the SkyTrain, and you could easily attend the Surrey campus as well. In addition to those specific buildings and housing providers, we do have partnerships with some listing services, and you'll see listings here for different campuses for different, some of them are a room in a house, some of them might be a secondary suite or a private apartment. So places for students and for stay will have landlords that list individual properties for you to rent, and you can check those out as well. Yeah, I'll go into a little bit more depth in a minute.
So now moving on to tips and important considerations for finding off-campus housing.
Yeah, so we're going to spend a little bit of time here. Tips for, sorry. Go.
Yeah. Starting off with, do you have any tips for finding housing off campus?
I do actually. So if you are maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of information or options, or even just like maybe you haven't been to the city before, you're not sure where to start or what the rental climate is like, how you should be approaching this housing search. This is just a sort of a timeline of what it might look like. You may need to circle back at some points, but there are a few steps that you can take while you're starting on this housing search journey. And so the first step is really determining your needs. I'm going to share towards the end a link to this amazing, actually, online resource called Renting It Right, which is it's an online course that you can take to prepare for renting a place in BC. So it's very specific to the housing laws in BC. It will give you a lot of information about that. And they have some great PDFs and like downloadable resources that you can use to even a worksheet to determine your needs. And also for all the other steps of your housing process here. So yeah, start by determining your needs. If one of those needs is roommates, you can look for roommates. There's a few different ways to do that, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Preparing for rental applications, so getting documents together, and just making sure that when you go to a viewing, you're ready to apply right then and there. Because a lot of sometimes, if it's a really good unit, there may be multiple people, it may be a little competitive. So it's always a good idea to prepare your documents to bring with you, but also to make sure that you're sharing a little bit of information about yourself and you're kind of ready to go when you go to the viewing. When you're all ready with that and you're starting to look, there's lots of different ways that you can approach this. But the really good starting place are the two listing services that I mentioned. So that would be places for students and for stay. And then once you're attending viewings, you can really kind of weigh whether or not these different places are meeting the needs that you've previously determined. And then you are ready to sign a lease and move in. Going into a little bit more detail about determining your needs. So first, you're going to want to think about the budget. What is your monthly budget for rent? And also considering other costs like utilities, parking, laundry. This relates to the next one, but how are you getting around? Will you have a car? Will you be taking transit? And factoring those considerations into the budget as well. There is a QR code here for the SFU financial planning page. So this site offers some resources to help you budget. There's like a cost calculator and a few other resources on the financial planning page if you'd like to take advantage of that. Location I mentioned, but how will you be getting to campus? Are there amenities nearby that fit your lifestyle? If you're looking for like a little more green space, but you're attending Vancouver campus, maybe you want to consider living a little farther out of downtown and taking transit. Or if you would like to be right in the thick of things, you could consider living downtown. In terms of roommates, if you do need a roommate, there are a couple you can search on Facebook. There are a couple of student-run Facebook groups, and there's also a roommate finder in places for students. So you can take a look there to see if anybody's posted, or just like asking around to your personal networks as well. Worth noting with regards to roommates that some places like GEC will offer the ability for you to, they'll help match you up with a roommate. So if you don't know anyone yet, that's okay. They will be able to help you find somebody to live with who's also applied there to live at GEC. So that's quite helpful, especially if you're arriving in a new city and you're still making connections. It's early days. This next one is really important. So the type of tenancy, how long of a lease do you want to sign? If you're planning to, live in the Lower Mainland and kind of be here full time, maybe you're looking for something a little more long term, you probably would look into signing a 1-year lease. But if you are not planning to be here or you're going to go do a co-op or exchange somewhere else where it won't make sense for you to live in this place, you may want to consider a shorter term option, or also checking with the landlord or the property management company if you are allowed to sublet your room, because many of, especially the larger properties, if you're working with a property management company, they will want you to sign a 1-year lease. So just checking with them to see if you're allowed to then post that room for sublet if you're going to be gone for the summer. There are also options for posting your sublet on places for students. So that can be helpful as well if you do end up getting an apartment where you are signing a 1-year lease. It is worth noting that if you're signing a 1-year lease, when that lease comes to an end, so that 1 year comes to an end, you will roll over to a month-to-month agreement. So you are able to stay for that 1 year, you're committed to that year. But if you want to stay a year and 2 months, that's perfect. You're able to give 1 month notice and then move out following that agreement. There's tons more information about your tenancy rights. I'll share those resources and also talk a little bit more later, but we'll continue on here with determining your needs. So yeah, lastly on this slide would be your access needs. So do you need accessible or adaptable space? Considering kind of the noise levels and the number of roommates, all of those things that may factor into what type of place you might be looking for. We talked a little bit about location and different campuses and different options. I do just want to quickly show you a transit map of Vancouver so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Can we see that? Is that too small? I can zoom in a bit. We don't need to see this much of, so, okay. So we talked earlier about when you arrive to campus, we talked about this line here. So YVR, there's the airport where you may be flying into if you're arriving by air. And if you are traveling to Vancouver, you will take this line here downtown to Waterfront, and then that will be walkable to your Vancouver campuses. This green line here is the R5. So this bus runs from downtown directly to Burnaby campus. So anywhere along here, along Hastings, especially like in Burnaby, Burnaby Heights is a popular area for students coming to Burnaby campus. And then just to point out Surrey, so Surrey would be Surrey Central. So you can see here it's all fairly connected. I would recommend referring to this map, and if you will be taking public transportation, check out the new property on the map and where it lies in relation to some of these stations. That will be helpful. So having seen that, yeah, like I mentioned, look for places connected to, so the Millennium Line was the yellow line, or the R5 bus. The partners that I've already mentioned, so Coteau right on the mountain, as well as GEC Burnaby Heights, will be a quick bus ride for you from to and from Burnaby campus. I know we do have some Surrey students here today, so you're looking for proximity to the blue line, the dark blue line, that Expo line. I did mention BOSA, which is walkable to the Surrey campus, but also anywhere you're connected via Expo line will be convenient. So just as an example here, I put GEC Kingsway is near Nanaimo Station. You'll be able to transit quite easily from there to the Surrey campus. Vancouver, you can't really go wrong. I mean, there's lots of buses, lots of SkyTrains, lots of great connections. All the GEC locations are very well connected to the downtown campus. So whether that be by SkyTrain, by bus, it's really easy to get downtown. And then again, if you're looking specifically for a studio and you'd like to be downtown and walking, you could consider Alma Gastown. Okay, yeah, so we talked a little bit about roommates, but I do want to bring up a few more details. So the places for students roommate finder, like I mentioned, personal networks, Facebook groups, all these things for finding roommates. Once you've found somebody though, there are probably some conversations that you want to have with that person about your expectations to do with your living situation and really determining whether you are compatible roommates if you're looking for the same things. So you can complete a compatibility questionnaire. There's some great options to do that on the Track BC website, which I'll make sure that you are aware of how to access that towards the end. But sitting down and asking questions like, okay, are we morning people? Are we evening people? What level of noise is acceptable to us after certain hours? Do we cook a lot? What are our standards of cleanliness? So many different things that you can talk about and set expectations before you enter into a living situation with somebody. Also, this is really important to clarify the expectations because especially if you're living off campus and you are signing an agreement, a tenancy agreement with another person, um, both of you are, you are on the hook for paying the rent, for coming up with the rent together. So you have to make sure that you are finding somebody reliable who you can communicate with and who you're going to be entering into an agreement with that is like a legal document. So, so yeah, don't take this lightly, but also living with roommates is so much fun, getting to know people, learning how to live with others, all positive experiences. But it is good to have some of these conversations before you get too far into it. You can also sign a roommate agreement. So if that's a helpful tool for you to maybe have some of these discussions or work through different different items that might be on a roommate agreement with regards to your expectations, you can do that. And there's a good template as well through TRAC. So TRAC is the Tenant Resource and Advisory Center, and they have a document there that you can look at and consider signing to be able to complete this roommate agreement. So highly recommend. Oops, I think you're,
Sorry,
oh,
I
yeah,
muted.
that's good.
Okay, I'm back. Thank you for that very informative section. Moving on, are there any other important things to note when searching for housing?
Yes. So I do want to talk a little bit about avoiding rental scams. This is mostly because I assume many people in this session today are maybe coming from long distances and maybe you don't have a contact here in the Lower Mainland who can check out a place for you. You're looking at things online and some things look too good to be true. So I do want to I'm going to show this CVC video and then this just provides a good example of the type of rental scam that you might encounter and has a little bit more information about that. So I will, can we get some thumbs up if the sound is okay?
I don't think the computer sound is being shared.
Got it. It's not sharing the sound. That's interesting. Sorry. I'm going to stop my share just for 1 second and then reshare that. Definitely reverse. Okay, sorry, the recording's back, so I'll start from the beginning. We will return to this video if we have time. If not, we'll just shoot the link to everybody. But some key points would be often, like if you see a listing with like really beautiful photos, just try reverse image searching those photos and see if they come up under other listings, or maybe they're not in the city at all. Maybe it's stock photography, especially if you're reading it and it seems a little bit too good to be true. That's, if it seems like too good to be true, it probably is. Here, let me just get the slide back up. Oh, I think I got it. We're gonna try one more time. If not, we're skipping it.
If you're looking at a rental posting like this that's way under market, you're probably looking at a rental scam. We know that the cost of rents in BC are at the highest they've ever been, with one bedrooms going for over $3,000 a month, which makes rental scams like these feel way worse. And when speaking to the experts, that housing crisis, that rental crisis, is what's making rental scams that much more prevalent and predatory.
Rental scams are definitely, they are almost affecting the most vulnerable. Someone who's looking for a new home. Rental properties are, hard to come by, especially ones that fit your budget and what your needs might be. And the reality is that this is a big ticket item. We look at the median dollar loss, which is kind of that midpoint. It was $1,600 in 2022. That's a lot of money for most people, especially those who are either going to a new location or, maybe traveling for school even. When you're preying on people who are really uprooting themselves, that is incredibly unfortunate.
So are rental scams actually more common?
It is on the rise across the nation, and there is a housing market crunch across the nation, right? Especially in the metros. And we need to be mindful that as people move, especially if they're moving from a different province to another location, they're not always there in person, and that creates a lot of opening and gaps for scammers to come in.
Can you tell us an example of a rental scam?
We recently saw a consumer who was moving from another province, and so they were coming from Alberta, they were coming to Vancouver, and they were looking for new space for themselves, their partner, and their dog. And they thought they had found it, right? So they had a conversation with the suspected property manager. They saw pictures. They did a bit of Google searching themselves. I mean, they did a little bit of due diligence. They looked up the photos, and the photos matched the property address. And so they thought, this seems great. The suspected property manager even offered to pick them up from the airport. So they sent over what seemed normal, right? First month's rent, security deposit, pet deposit, and thought everything was great. As they got closer to the time and they were trying to arrange that pickup or, get more information, they lost contact. So they weren't picking up, they weren't responding, and all of a sudden they realized they'd been duped. So this is really that stereotypical example of you have to see what you're purchasing. You really want to do your due diligence to the next level. And there were a number of red flags within this story that are hidden in plain sight.
Let's talk about some of those red flags. How can we avoid them?
If you do a reverse image search and you look at these images, are they popping up in more than one location? That's a red flag. In this last story, they were using a personal email. So they sent their security deposit to a personal email. That's a red flag. If they're working for a formal company, they're going to have a legitimate email address that goes back to that website. On the contract, they had a GST number. Again, seems legitimate. But if you go to the Government of Canada website and you review that GST number, it's actually no longer active. It's not for that company. And so you really want to do an extreme level of due diligence. But the thing here that is number one and paramount is you have to send someone to see a space in person. So if you can't, come into town by yourself, send a trusted friend, a family member, a colleague, anyone that you trust to go see the space and have that conversation face to face so that the person you're dealing with is legitimate and the space is legitimate.
If you've ever been affected by a rental scam, you can go to the Better Business Bureau's Scam Tracker tool. Maurice Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.
Okay, so that sort of illustrates an example of what this type of scam might look like. In this case, sort of fairly sophisticated. They had been through multiple levels of conversations and agreements with this individual, and but unfortunately had not been able to see the property in person. So that's just one example of what that kind of posting might look like. But yeah, all good tips to keep in mind, especially if it's a property management company. Look into the company. And the personal email, all of those different things. The resources towards the end there will be more information further reading for you about how to protect yourself. But it's a good thing to keep in mind and just be aware of as you're conducting your off-campus housing search. Sorry, we'll get this in a better view there. Okay. Kind of piggybacking off that, knowing your rights as a tenant, also equally important. And the housing laws in Canada are provincial. So if you've lived in another province, it may be different from what you're encountering in BC. So the Residential Tenancy Act is the act that governs your housing in BC if you are living off campus. Important to note that this does not apply to SFU residents. This is for your off-campus housing, and it's a little bit dense and wordy, and sort of legal language. But the resources I'll point you towards at the end of the presentation have some opportunities to kind of read things in plainer language. So that's helpful because it is sometimes I'm like, what are you saying? But that's a good thing to familiarize yourself with, the Residential Tenancy Act. A couple other key things, definitely completing a walkthrough of the property with your landlord before you move in. And there is a form for this. So there's a document that you fill out together that lists everything that's included in the property rental, down to like window coverings, appliances. All that information will be in your agreement. So you'll go through that and make sure that everything's listed and document any damages or other concerns. I also recommend upon move-in, I always do this myself. I take photographs of the condition of different rooms. If I see any particular damage, especially, even if it doesn't seem too concerning, but like, okay, there's a little hole in the wall in the corner, like, or a dent, just like take a photo, because you do want to make sure when you vacate the unit that you're not going to be tasked with the cost of repair if that was the state of the unit when you moved in. So this is really important. If the landlord does not complete this walkthrough with you, then they're not able to ask you for your deposit, to keep your deposit for damages, but also it's to protect you. So definitely recommend you do that. When you move out of the unit, you'll also complete the walkthrough again together with that same document and note anything outstanding, any changes, and you'll be able to really have that as documentation of everything that happened and all of the condition of units and appliances when you moved into the property. We do also recommend communicating with your landlord in writing. This is all Track BC recommendations. So if you're texting, keep copies, keep records of any of your communication, and just so that you're able to refer back to it. Keep copies of all your documents. There are some situations if the landlord's needing to enter your unit where they do have to provide you notice in writing, and just keep all of that in case you need it. A lot of people do have, extremely friendly and collegial relationships with their landlords, especially if you're living in the same property. So maybe you're living in a basement suite and they live above you. So always great to have conversations with them, but always, if you can, follow up with maybe an email about what you discussed and keep track of all that. If you are having any issues with your landlord, whether that be they're raising the rent by a lot, which doesn't seem allowed, or they're hesitating to perform essential repairs, plumbing, anything like that, definitely seek help. There's a number of avenues to do that. There, of course, is the off-campus living advisor as a first point of contact, but also I will point you towards some other things towards the end, so that you know where to go if you're having any of those problems in your off-campus rental. So these are some of the, I'm going to come back to this actually. I'm going to show you our off-campus website or webpage, because this is a really good starting point to not only find some of these resources, but to look at our off-campus housing partners and kind of get a little bit further into that. So this page has a few different things, contact information, of course, but I do want to point out, this is where you can find links to all of our different off-campus housing providers. So all the ones previously mentioned, it's sorted here by location. So Burnaby, we have GEC and Coteau, Surrey, Bosa Parkway, and Almagastown in Vancouver. we've talked a lot about that. The ones I actually really want to show you right now are listing services. So we have a couple of different options for you. The first one is called Places for Students. And you'll see here, this is the Burnaby campus. So this links to the Burnaby campus, but we do have the ability to look to to both other campuses as well. So there'll be more specific postings to those areas. So you can see here, not many sublets because it's not really that time that probably would have been posted before summer started. But property listings, some faculty and staff listings, as well as other resources and information. I do want to point out at the bottom here, they will display some average rent for the area, but these numbers, it's better to just look at the listings themselves and kind of see what the patterns are. So I'm going to click on that. And you'll see here all of the different postings. You can also look at it on a map. Oops, that's not good. That's never happened before. It's chosen today to do that. Oh, here we go. Okay. So the map gives you a good idea of the locations of all these different listings. What's also nice about it is you can filter. So if you want to filter by the number of bedrooms or the different area or the cost, there's lots of different options for you. The dates that are available, kind of like type of housing, and all the different utilities. So you'll be able to really customize that search. But it's a good idea to start broad and just kind of see what's out there. And then here you can see, you can even filter by how long you want your lease to be and look at the most relevant listings that way. A couple other things. So I know we do have a slide about it later, but we have a few students that had inquired about moving here with their families. So you can also filter here on the side by the type of housing, the number of rooms, and all of that might be helpful for maybe looking for a larger unit. So this is Places for Students. Let me see. They do list, there might not be anything now, but there occasionally will pop up with shorter term rentals. Here, mostly though, they're just kind of buried in with the other listings. So that's why that filter by lease length is a good option. Okay, so that's Places for Students. And again, my window went away. There will be the ability to look at other campuses. That was just Burnaby is a good example. The other listing service is Forstay. So I'd say the difference between these is Places for Students, you're much more dealing directly with the landlord or with the property manager. So you are, you can determine with them how you want to communicate, whether that be email or phone call or text. You'll be doing your payments directly to the landlord. Forstay is a bit more streamlined. So we look at oops, that's not the right link. One sec. So Forstay, you actually are able to complete payments and do most of your messaging through, this is the homepage, sorry. I'm just gonna type. Okay, so this is the SFU landing page. And you'll see some rooms listed here. And you can choose your type of accommodation, you can choose your campus. But this platform actually allows your payments and all of your communication to happen on Forstay. So the good thing about that is the security. If you are, sending money in different ways across this platform, you will have support from Forestay if anything were to come up. So you would be able to connect with somebody at Forestay and say like, hey, I paid this deposit and then the room's not real. So they'd be able to kind of like refund you on that or support you because everything is running through their platform. So a couple of different options. It's good to look at both. You can choose which campus here as well. But I would say like, even if maybe you're attending Surrey campus, check out the Burnaby listings, check out the Vancouver listings. If you're living on transit, there might be some good options that just happen to be posted at another campus, but could still be relevant to the type of housing that you're looking for. Okay, so those are listing services. This page also will have all the resources I'm about to mention on the next slide. So a link to the Residential Tenancy Act, which I mentioned, the Renting It Right course, and the contact information from the Tenant Resource and Advisory Center. So this is a really wonderful resource. They have an info line with any, they can answer any questions that you have about your lease or your landlord or anything that's going on. They do also have in-person drop-in hours, which they will publish. They mostly put them up on their Instagram, and they'll, I think monthly, they'll have info sessions just about being a tenant, workshops, and other webinars. But I think the best thing about Track, I use it myself all the time. If I need to communicate with my landlord about anything important. So they have template letters that you can send, whether that be you want to move out, you're not sure what information you need to provide or how much notice. Maybe you're having an issue with noise. You can download a template letter and fill it out, and it will refer to the most relevant sections of the Residential Tenancy Act to kind of demonstrate to your landlord that you are well within your rights to be asking for these things. So lots of great resources on this website, as well as, of course, like phone and in-person support for any issues that you're having. Okay, back to the slides. So all of these I mentioned, except for so far the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Commission, CMHC. So they have really good reports. If you are, maybe you're a data nerd like me and you really like to get into the numbers, you want to explore different neighborhoods with regards to, you know, average monthly rent based on number of bedroom or something like that. They have all kinds of data that you can use to look up that information, and it will be divided by you know, by the area, whether you're looking at Coquitlam, Burnaby, Surrey, all those different places. That will give you a good overview. There is also some of this data that's been used to populate the Places for Students information. So it's a little bit more palatable there, but if you want to get into the numbers, there's all kinds of reports you can download. We mentioned all these other things. The best way to find all these resources in one place is at that off-campus housing page that I showed you a minute ago.
Okay. That was a lot of information, but all very important considerations to have in mind when you're searching for off-campus housing. Just a reminder that the recording will be available and posted on our website and emailed out to attendees later on, so you don't have to worry about whether remembering all of this after maybe seeing it for the first time. Moving on, for family housing.
Yeah, so I did want to, oh yeah.
Yeah,
so I did want to bring up, go ahead.
Please go ahead, Daniel.
No, I was just going to say, I did want to make a separate slide for this because when we asked you to submit questions in advance, there were a number of people who brought this up. So just pointing back to a couple of things that I already mentioned with regards to residents, but also kind of your off-campus options, tips and recommendations for finding family housing. So, okay, yeah. So on and off-campus options, again, mentioning that if you haven't applied, you should definitely apply, but also likely to be on a wait list. However, if this is something you're looking to in the future to live in SFU graduate and family housing, I just have a little bit of information about it here. So studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, bit of info about the contracts. So they start from the move-in date to July, option to renew by May 1st for the following year. Applications are open throughout the year. It's a little bit different from the other options, as payment is month to month, and they are unfurnished apartments. So that's something you'll need to keep in mind. You will need to be furnishing it yourself. With regards to off-campus options, I did point out on the listing services how you can filter by number of bedrooms. So you can look there for a larger unit and make sure that you're only looking at the most relevant ones. Also, if you are attending Surrey campus, there are up to 2 bedroom apartments in Bosa Parkway, so a little bit more space there. GEC as well has private apartments. I think less likely to be suitable for young kids. I think generally they're mostly 1 beds, but if you're moving with a partner, then this could be a good option, especially if you're considering maybe finding something a little bit more permanent, but you're looking for a shorter term contract to get you started. They do have the option for shorter term between 3 to 7 months that you can stay in for that time while you're looking for something else. So a few options here. But again, if you are hoping to get into family housing here at SFU, there are these off-campus options could be a good starting point if you need to wait for that to happen. This QR code is information about the SFU graduate and family housing. Oops, okay. Okay, so yeah, I think that's it from me for a moment till we get to questions. I'm going to pass it back to Neela.
Thank you. If we can go back to the previous slide, please.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for your patience and going through all this information. And I realize this is a lot to digest, and I appreciate everyone for sticking around with us today. We will now move on to the open questions and answers session, and then I will end the recording in a moment. So for those of you watching the recording, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in a future workshop or in one-on-one advising.